Just take those old records off the shelf. I sit and listen to them by myself. Today's music ain't got the same soul. I like that old
time rock and roll.
Don't try to take me to a disco. You never really get me out of the floor. In 10 minutes I'll be late for the door. I like that old time rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
Old time rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
The kind of music that soothes the soul.
Soothes the soul.
And reminisce about the days
of old.
Like that old time rock and roll. What's up?
What's up, Darius? How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so much better now that I sang the beginning of that song.
There's nothing like a great song to just get, like, literally flip things around.
Just get the juices flowing. Well, hey,
that's right.
Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm so happy you're here today.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna have so much fun. Do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get rolling?
Go for it.
Guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and we have a very amazing special guest, and my friend Nadine Rajabi. Welcome to the show. Woo!
Thanks, Darius. Yay! Clap.
Yes. Guys, as you guys know who watch the show, which is the millions of you out there, the show is about two things. We're about people who are living their greatness, and those who are living their greatness to create passions in the world. I don't know. I just mixed that backwards. Those who are living their passions to create greatness in the world. And my friend Nadine is full of passion and greatness. I'm so glad to have you here today. With that said, guys, a few things. We are live. So there's no takes here. We can't no redos. If I say something totally fucked up, it just can't undo it. It just happened. This is the world we live in today. This is the Trumpisms. Anyway,
you might get canceled today off this show.
This might be my last show. That's just it.
Might be my last show.
You guys, look, if you like anything we're talking about, like the comment, start a watch party and ask us questions. I've been so pumped to have Nadine on the show for so long. I was like, oh, I can't wait to have Nadine on the show. We're going to talk about so much fun, cool stuff. So can I give my little bio of you? Is that cool?
Please.
I wrote the ending myself. I took
I redid your life for you.
Yes. So here, some of it's her formal bio, but some of it's my less so formal. So Nadine is an actress, comedian, and pulp culture expert. She's created, written, and hosted many digital series for top platforms and networks, including Bravo's digital series, The Shahs Come Clean with Nadine, from Shahs of Sunset, Fresh Squeezed, The Housewives of Orange County, and Housewivesology, The Real Housewives of New Jersey. And currently, she's the executive producer and showrunner for the very popular, aren't you like #1 on cable TV? Is that right?
Maybe number 2. Sometimes we're number 1, sometimes, but yes, we're
potato. You're #1 in my book.
We're number 1. That's right. That's all that matters.
Second place is the first loser.
Winning.
Below the Deck at Mediterranian, and you've been doing all the Below the Decks. That's your deal, right? That's your baby, isn't that right?
Oh yes, Below Deck Med is I birthed it. I have no other life except for that television show. I just got back from shooting another season, which we're not really supposed to talk about, but I just did, so we can't undo that. But shooting in a pandemic is no joke. That's something we could talk about. But yeah, that's the series that I launched, and every year I'm like, you know what? I need to move on and do other things, but it's like it just keeps sucking me back in. It's like I can't abandon my child.
Yeah, you can't just leave it at the grocery store like Punky Brewster.
That's right.
So I didn't. Wait, but you didn't let me finish the best part of the whole bio. So some fun facts about Nadine. She's a national champion black belt. There's some amazing pictures of her in Karate Gis, by the way. A world-class soccer player, badass soccer player, competitive snowboarder, former semi-pro soccer player, and most importantly, she lived on Circular Lazo in Anaheim Hills in the 1980s and 90s and hung out with me and my brother in our neighborhood. And we committed so many crimes. Not even legal to remind people of them today. We actually committed crimes. They were like very low-level crimes.
They're low level. And thankfully before we were 18, so
Yeah.
they didn't stay on the record.
Yeah, you can ding dong ditch and can cars and egg houses. That's all. It's all legal. I mean, it's not totally legal, but you can do it and get away with it when you're 9.
By the way, it wasn't documented. We never got arrested for it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny that we committed those fraudulent activities, but maybe it happened. So, man, so good that you're back on this continent. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I've been home for a week, so it's been a lot of adjusting, obviously, and I was really freaked out about flying in a pandemic. I was flying domestically, which the first time I.
Oh.
But flying overseas and going in through international airports in a pandemic, especially when Europe was like shut down, was a little scary because the news really freaks you out. And listen, the pandemic kind of freaks me out. I'm not going to lie. But I feel really great to be home, like, and back in, I'm in my little space right now without wearing a mask for a second. I think we all have mask fatigue, and it's been rough. I feel like we're all just trying to make our own fun, trying to reconnect with family, with friends and things like that. But I'm so happy to be here with you. And I think you're my first human interaction besides my family, actually, Darius.
If you were here, I'd give you a hug. We could actually talk as humans right now.
And I'm COVID negative, so I would give you a hug.
I hug people. I still hug people, and I'm not worried about COVID. I've done the math. You have to hug them. Like, it has to be a really creepy long hug.
Like a 15-minute hug?
Yeah. I have to hug you for like 9 minutes and not let go and like do face breathing. So,
right, exactly. Like just like face to face like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So like people are like throwing out the bows, and I'm like, dude, you're not going to get COVID by giving me a fucking hug unless you literally sneeze in my mouth. Like,
right. It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So I kind of roll up. I'm like, dude, bring it in for the real thing. Like, come on. So yeah, no, I'm glad that you have your priorities straight and you're hanging out with me. So how long were you in Europe for?
I was there for 2 months. We had to quarantine. There's an airplane overhead or a helicopter overhead. We had to quarantine, and then I was like, couldn't even go outside to run. Like, they were taking it really serious because we created like a production bubble, kind of like the M.B.A. did. And then we got tested, every 3 days, did all that stuff. But I was there for 2 months, and typically I'm only there for like, we shoot for 6.5 weeks, and I go travel for a little bit after that. But like, I was like, let's just get home. I couldn't even go anywhere. That was the other thing, is like, you're kind of just stuck between a hotel room and the boat where we were shooting.
That does not sound like a fun year. I mean, the shooting part might have been cool, but the part where
you couldn't. It's such a tease being in Europe and not being able to go out in Europe. That's the thing, and like do the things that you want to do in Europe.
What are you allowed to say what country you were in?
Yeah, I was in Croatia because Croatia was open, but also they invited us back. The government did, because we shot their season 2, and while we never like to repeat a location, and we went to a different part of Croatia, it was literally the only place we could shoot in a pandemic with all the board of tourism. It was a whole process. We like had a person from the CDC consulting with our production. We had a doctor with us 24 hours a day. God forbid something happens. And I mean, we traveled 50 people over there. So the fact that nobody got sick, like, not as of yet, I mean, nothing's come through since everyone's flown home. Like, it's a miracle.
Yeah, no, like the odds say that shouldn't have happened, but
50 people. Like, I think it's a little over 50 people. That's crazy.
And so when you guys, was it like a bubble set? Like no one else was allowed in and out of it?
Yeah, exactly right. So we were in a hotel in the bubble. We took over the whole hotel, and then our show's on a boat. So we take a water taxi to the boat. When we go to the boat, everyone on that boat is same protocol, tested every 3 days. And by the way, I have to have a conversation with our production doctor. I was like, in America, they don't swab us as hard. Like, the first day she shoved that thing up my nose. I was like, I go, you don't need to go that far up. And she's like, yes, I do. I was like, come on, be gentle. And after that, she went, okay, because everyone complained. And she eased up on us, but it was really funny.
She wasn't being sensual with her.
No, I was like, come on, give me some foreplay at least. Like,
yeah. Don't just jam it in. I need to be warmed up. So I've only had one COVID test, but it was a surprise to me. So here in Texas, so first of all, I flew to California to shoot. I'm turning my book into a course, and so
God, thank God, great! I'm glad you're doing that.
It's super cool. And I actually have never worked on a teleprompter in front of the camera before. As energetic and like lively as I am, I don't have that experience. And I did it, and I was like, dude, move over Barack Obama. I will fuck you up with a teleprompter. I fly back, and I was like really tired because I've been working a lot, like getting the book launched and doing the course. And my wife's like, I bet you have COVID. You need to go get tested. I'm like, I don't fucking have COVID. I didn't even see anybody. She's like, well, you were flying. So anyway, here in Texas, you got to drive through like a Home Depot parking lot that's controlled by the state.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, it's kind of funny actually, because like they're all like waving you over, and then you don't know if they're saying to roll down the window. So you roll down the window, and they all like tell you rolled up, and like they're all freaked out, like you're going to give them a disease. Because you're you're probably not going to get COVID tests because you just like want fun for fun, right? You're doing it because you think you might be sick. So anyway,
that's right.
I pull I go and I pull my mask down, my nose is sticking out, and dude, I swear to God, that fucking thing went like,
it's so long.
They were touching my brain.
I know.
And so here's the deal. Like, I didn't even want to do it. My wife made me do it. And I'm cursing her name in my brain the whole, every inch that fucking thing's going in my head. And then they pull it out, and I'm like, are you, like, my eyes are watering. And I'm like, it hurt. And I was like, fuck this. They don't have a better way of doing this. So how many of those did you do?
Every 3 days. Can you believe that? So they swabbed us that way, both nostrils. And to be safe, they do a mouth one too. Like, I actually have a video. I don't know if you can share a video. I can send you a video of like, you're just in line to just be like completely like just like prodded and poked every 3 days. I was like, there's got to be a better way, but there isn't. Yeah. By the way, it's really funny in California. So in Texas, like you're saying, that's the way they're doing it. In California, there's so many testing sites now because like California's been insane with COVID. By the way, there's more dispensaries in California than I think Starbucks. Now I feel like there's more COVID testing sites than there are dispensaries in Starbucks. I literally walked up to one and I was in line. I was like in and out within like 10 minutes. And like before that, I had to go to Dodger Stadium. I was in my car. It was a whole thing. This is when COVID first was like run rapid and things like that. I remember it was first like just ramping up and nobody knew a lot about it. Mm-hmm. And I was in line for 2.5 hours. This one like took me 10 minutes when I just went in last week to get my test, because I was like, I can't be in quarantine for 2 weeks. So I've gotten tested twice, and so I talked to our production doctor, and they're like, you go out.
They do the quick, like the little swab, the quick one.
Yeah. So it was pretty easy, but it's no joke. My God, when they go up there, it's like, it's shocking.
Dude, I told my wife I would rather get a prostate exam than the COVID.
Well, listen, I've never had a prostate exam, but I'd rather get a prostate exam, and I don't have a prostate.
She's like, you're lying. And I'm like, no, seriously, I'd rather someone put their fucking finger on my ass than like all day long.
Literally, you should tell your wife, by the way, the doctor told me the airplane is probably one of the safest places you could be. It's safer than a grocery store. It's safer than any place you could be. It's the airports that you've got to be worried about.
Okay, cool. Done.
Because a lot of those airplanes have redone like the HEPA filters and things like that. Like, it's actually, listen, it's not like you're like free and clear of the disease, but it is safer than a grocery store because it's really well contained. And I mean, you're flying from California to Texas, so I don't know. I'm sure they didn't feed you any food, because when I was flying to New York, they gave us like a boxed. They gave me like a boxed thing. But going internationally, when I flew United, they actually gave us an old, like a tray, but they weren't pouring drinks in the open. They gave us like a mini bottle of wine that was already sealed. Mm-hmm. And then when I flew back with British Airways, they gave me a boxed dinner, but it was all hot, but it was all like contained and it was a whole thing. And the woman that was like, she had it. She goes, bring me your bag. I'll give you more champagne and you can just fill it up. And I was like, oh my God, she's like giving away her booze at this point.
Yeah. You're like, I know free champagne cures COVID.
Exactly. Not a hangover, but COVID.
Yeah, done. It kills it.
Drinking bleach does, like the president said.
What I was going to say was, I heard the safest place to not get COVID is a Trump rally, but that's neither. Yeah, like it's a hoax. Nobody there has it.
Dude, I don't even get me started. I remember when I was in Europe and that happened. It was all the news in Europe, by the way, when I was watching it in Europe. Like, they were following the president's like COVID. I was like, the fact we are such a joke in Croatia. I'm watching international news and they're following Trump having COVID in his like weird fake lair in like the Walter Reed Hospital. I was like, this, like, first of all, there's two things that crossed my mind when he had it. And I was like, okay, either he really has it, and I do think he had it, but like he's gonna use this to be like, it's fine, it's nothing, I got over it, blah blah blah, which is what he did. Or he actually faked the disease because he's just crazy enough to do that, to say it's fine, I got it, everything's fine.
Well, if you remember, the week it came out, like, was the week his tax returns came out, the $750.
That's why I say he totally buried it. He totally buried it.
So that shit came out. I'm like, dude, he doesn't fucking have COVID. This is bullshit. I'm like, he's trying. I'm like, listen, if I was a billionaire and I was president of the United States running for re-election, it just came out that I paid $750 in taxes and was fighting a $71 million tax refund, I get COVID. Dude, I get COVID in 2 seconds.
I'd be like, can you cough on me?
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, like who has COVID? Come give Darius COVID. I would be like kissing people.
Oh my god!
Take me to the intensive care unit of every. Every hospital, and I'm gonna kiss
cough on me.
President Mirshahzadeh, why are you kissing people on the mouth with COVID?
My COVID's very, very good. It's very good COVID. The best COVID you've had.
I had the best COVID. If I had COVID, it's the best COVID.
And that's the best. Oh, the best COVID. Oh my God. Number one COVID in all of COVIDs.
If Trump was Persian, he'd be like the number one COVID.
Number one COVID. It's the best.
It's the best. COVID.
By the way, now Ben Carson has it. I'm like, oh, now you have it. Like he's just feeling left out at this point because everyone else had it around the Trump administration. I was like, Ben, go away.
He's trying to be relevant because he's losing his job.
That's what I'm saying. He's losing. All right, exactly. He's like, I have it too. I have it.
Hey, don't forget about me. I'm the Secretary of Housing. I got COVID. The Pence fly got COVID, I think, too.
Oh my God, that fucking fly! I died. I literally lost my mind. It was the best. It was the best thing.
I'm like, this is going to be all over Saturday Night Live.
Oh my God, it was genius.
So hey, I want to back up for a second because so let's back way up. So you're in the entertainment business. So obviously some people that are watching this know you that we grew up with, but they're you're like the guy behind the guy now, and you were in front of the screen before, and now you're behind the screen. Why don't you kind of walk us through like how did you get to where you're at right now? And I want to start from maybe like when you were, you were an athlete, you were in college, and you were in college at, was it California Lutheran?
Yeah.
Yeah. Start there and kind of take us forward.
Well, it was funny because I was a bio major and I always knew that I wanted to be doing some sort of thing in television. I always wanted to be a stand-up. It was when Joan Rivers used to cover for Carson when Carson was out. I remember I'd tell my mom, that's what I want to do. She'd be like, after you're a doctor or a lawyer, that's what you could do. I was like, okay, after. I'm going to do both professions, and then I'm going to become a comedian.
Such a Persian answer.
Totally. I'll never forget. And those are the days that we were all playing together on Circular Lazo and View Corral. And I got an internship at Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher. This is before he was kicked off the air and before Real Time existed, because Bill Maher made a statement about 9/11 and he got canceled on, it was when he was on ABC. So I was an intern there, and I was interning with the writers, and I got some writing picked up on that show, I remember. And I at the time, and we can say whatever we want on this on this podcast, right?
Yeah. You can say whatever you want.
This is in 1999, I think, or 98. At the time, this is when when all the stuff of like Dirty Sanchez, Cleveland Steamer, all that stuff. Like, so I'm in college and I know about all these dirty, funny jokes. I'm telling the writers on Politically Incorrect about this stuff. They're like, how do you know this stuff? I'm like, I'm in college. We joke about this stuff. Yeah. And they're like, so they thought I was the funniest thing. I'm like, I didn't make this stuff up. I just know about it because I'm in college. And so they're like, you have to, because they found out I wanted to do stand-up. Like, you have to get on stage. We're not going to sign your internship paperwork because we do it for college credit unless you get on stage. So on those writers of Politically Incorrect, which a lot of them are writers on Real Time still, made me get up on stage and do stand-up before I would do anything. So I did that.
Wait, can I ask you a question? What was your first joke? Do you remember?
Oh my God. It was my first joke ever was, oh my God, I do. I'm trying to not butcher it. It was something about, actually, one of my first jokes was about it was all about being Persian, but my first joke was, the punchline was, we still smell the same, but I don't remember the setup for it. It was
Oh,
something about we still smell the same. And then another one was about getting waxed and how, you have to get like a weed whacker and a machete. And the first time I realized I had to get waxed, it was a bikini wax, and I was like, you guys, it was a Brazilian rainforest. Shakira was there, like it was the whole thing. She was trying to save the rainforest. It was something about being hairy. And I went through a whole thing. When I get waxed, it was like eyebrows.
oh, you cut.
So
You
it was
cut.
all. Are you there? Yep.
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit.
The live stream got upset with how much I had to get waxed. I was saying,
Yeah, the live stream was
eyebrows,
like,
bikini,
hey,
top of the
keep
bikini.
saying
Yeah, like
axe away.
enough. The axe way.
Like,
It was just like easy jokes about hair and whatever we could make. But it was just whatever.
Being Persian's funny because for those of you in the audience don't know this, but may not know this, but Nadine and I are both Persian, which is why we're so amazing. But I'm half Persian. She's double the Persian that I am. But
double your pleasure.
Yeah, double the pleasure. So we're Persian. So I think growing up Persian's funny because you're not exactly white,
right?
Kind of like people, like you trick people. Like when I was in college, I had this Persian. He's actually a famous DJ now. His name's Hoj, Hoj. He's like all over the world.
Oh wow.
Hojab is his name, but he and I were we were like the Persian guys in our fraternity, and they called us the other white meat, like pork. It's kind of funny because Persians are Muslim.
Don't eat pork, right?
Right. We were the other white meat. That was, I think, his nickname actually.
That's hilarious.
So we grew up and we were like these like Persian kids, and to your point, like you're like, what the fuck's all this hair?
Yeah.
Like
totally.
Like this isn't cool.
I mean, I was literally covered in hair. Like we were covered in hair. Like it's funny because Darius's twin Mikey was not hairy like you and I were. Like Mikey had less hair than us somehow. Well, you got your mom's side.
Yeah. My mom doesn't have hair on her legs. It's Persian. Persian's a funny culture like that. So you grew up Persian. Your mom's like, you better be a doctor. You end up on Bill Maher, and so you do the stand up, and then take us from there.
So I started stand up when I was in college, and then when I actually graduated college, I hit it hard. I took a joke writing class. I did all that stuff, and then I was, after that, I was still interning and doing things like that. I was an assistant for this guy at 20th Television, which is a division of Fox. And so I was like answering phones, learning how to write one sheets, and then driving wherever I could to go do a set. Like I was driving from LA to San Diego on a night and back, Santa Barbara, wherever it was, and I was hitting it hard. And then I don't know how far back and how detailed you want me to get in through my history, but
whatever you're comfortable with. I want to give some context around how you doing what you're doing now, which is insane.
So basically, I was always in TV doing it that way, and then I remember I was making basically $100 a day. It was $24,000 a year, and I was like, you can't pay your rent off $24,000 a year, even in the year 2000 at that point, or 2001. And I remember there's a guy that I knew in the promo department, and this is like where they do all the TV promos and things like that. He's like, hey, we need a coordinator there. He's like, why don't you meet with my boss? And I was like, I don't know anything about promos. I was like, but I want more money. So I remember the guy interviewed me, and he was like, how much money will it take to get you out of your job? And I was like, I'm thinking I'm going to hit him big, Darius. I was like, $36,000 a year. You got me. I'm going to be rich. And so the guy goes, okay. And I was like, oh, fuck, I guess I got to quit my job being an assistant. I'm going to go be a coordinator in the promo department. And I'm thinking, I hit it big at 36 grand a year. Like I'm 21. I'm living large. I can now really, I've made it now.
Yeah, you're
I made it. Total baller. So they ended up having a huge round of layoffs with their promo writers and things like that. In between, he knew I wanted to be a writer, not writing TV commercials, but the guy was actually really nice, and he saw that I was creative. And so I started shadowing the promo writers, and they handed me at the time they had World's Wildest Police Videos. It was the reruns of it on FX. So the channel FX.
Mhm.
So they gave that to me. So my job became watching police chase after police chase, writing promos for World's Wildest Police Videos. And I mean, like, because it was very cheeky, the promos were. So it was like a little bit of comedy writing. And then I started like writing trailers for them and writing like not just for that show, but just like little by little. And I was like at that point, I think 23, 24, and we were directing voiceover. So I had like Don LaFontaine, who's now dead now, but he was the famous voiceover guy for the movies. Like In a World, like it was that guy.
Yeah.
He would either come in the office and he had a limo driver because people had limos back then. And he would come in and we'd be directing voiceovers. The first time I directed him was through this ISDN line because back in the day they had this call line. It was a crystal clear thing. And he didn't know I was this 23-year-old kid directing this famous voiceover guy. And, I'm directing him. I forget what spot it was. Um, it was great. It was fine. It was perfectly fine. Like, who am I to tell this guy who's this professional? Like, it was total fake it till you make it. I had no idea what I was doing. Like zero. I was like, great. Can we do it one more time for safety? Like, like I'm directing this guy at 23 years old. And so basically I started doing that. Then I started writing, I started meeting people. I wrote trailers for like Paramount. I did and they gave me a lot of kids movies. I did Charlotte's Web, Barnyard, a bunch of other movies like that. A lot of like movie campaigns, Back of the Jacket, DVD covers and things like that. I went back, got my master's, and I was doing a ton of stand up at the time. And I was at the club, and this guy who owned National Lampoon at the time had kind of picked me up, and they started National Lampoon Radio before XM Sirius was a thing.
Yeah.
And so I was syndicated, and they'd sold it to a bunch of markets. I was in like 100 different markets doing the entertainment news. And then it was actually just XM because they had XM and Sirius before the merger. And then we had a channel on XM, and I was doing the entertainment news. And I started getting a lot of listeners. So then they were like, why don't we start you off an hour a day, 5 days a week? And I was doing like celeb interviews and things like that. That ended up being 3 hours a night where I was doing like, interviewing comedians, celebrities, doing all that stuff. And so I really started getting a lot. It was like I was getting paid, but it became the best paid internship for me because it was like I wasn't getting paid a lot, but I was taking advantage of having this platform of like being on XM at the time and having like 3 hours of airtime. I mean, it was a wild, wild west because nobody really knew satellite radio. You could say whatever you wanted, like you could experiment. It was such a great training ground for me. And then from there, I started using that as a platform to I started doing all those I Love the 90s shows, those Best Week Ever shows, all those like commentating shows. And that really helped me launch kind of my on-camera persona. And I was a part of a Showtime special. So I did 3 different stand-up specials, and it was pretty crazy. But at the same time, I was also like trying to pitch a lot of ideas. And while I was in a lot of these rooms on camera, I was always like, hey, I've got all these TV show ideas. And anybody, they'd be like, oh, I'll introduce you to so-and-so. Because once I was a comedian and I was on camera, or like I had XM behind me, even though they didn't know I was not getting paid I mean, I don't know how much I was getting paid. Maybe like I was maybe getting paid $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month, but like I was getting paid through other means, through my stand-up, through on camera and things like that. It was not a lot of money, and that's why I call it a paid internship in that sense. But it was such a bigger launching pad for me because I was also still writing movie jackets and things like that. So I was like literally like a gypsy with a million jobs. I was at that point making pretty good money for my 20s, but like I had 100 jobs, like trying to juggle them all. And I remember I got picked up to be in this Fox think tank because I pitched them an idea about one of my best friends who was the heiress to Hot Dog on a Stick. It was the mall chain. and I met her playing soccer and through a mutual friend. Yeah, and I remember I called it Heiress on a Stick, and Fox liked the idea. They liked that I was a comedian. They're like, we're starting a think tank where we have a bunch of creatives here. You have an interesting voice because you're a comedian and a writer. And they had like somebody that was a reality person who, by the way, has quit reality TV. He was a Harvard grad and now like is working for the Democratic DNC. There's another guy that was a music guy. So we were all basically a bunch of creative monkeys that were in this room. And every week we come in with show ideas or an interesting article being like, hey, you guys should think about making a show with this. And they would give us their unscripted and scripted ideas like if they had a scripted idea, they bought, the studio bought, they're like, we don't know what to do with this idea. We would look at it and brainstorm and think, how can we tweak this, or things like that. And so from that, I sold a digital show, and it was terrible, but it was with Natasha Leggero and I. It's called the Skinny Fat Free News, and it was like a dumb girls news show. They launched the digital studio for Fox off our show, and that became a really big thing. They did a whole press release. This is like when digital was, I was already doing things on digital, but this was kind of like still beyond, before its time of like, they weren't doing a lot of things digitally because people hadn't figured it out yet.
When you say digitally, what do you mean by that?
Like it was just an online, strictly online show.
Where everything is now, right?
Yeah, exactly. But back then it was like like they hadn't really figured it out. It was like
you mean you're not on cable?
Right, exactly.
How am I supposed to watch you? I can't.
I can't watch you. Right. My mom was like, "How do I get this?" Right.
Watch you on my phone.
But they partnered with like MySpace at the time, like
No, you're cutting out.
So that really are you there now?
You're here now. Yep.
Are we back? Okay, great. So basically we had done that, and I remember my friend who was in the think tank he was a writer on Run's House, which is a Run DMC show.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a reality show, and this is the age of like scripted reality where they were doing The Hills or doing all that stuff. And I would probably get in trouble and broke some sort of NDA, but I feel like the statute of limitations has passed. It's been over 10 years. But they were literally writing reality. And so they needed a writer for the spinoff Daddy's Girls, which was Rev Run's. Yeah. So I was
MTV,
a writer.
right? Was that
on MTV?
Yeah,
MTV. Yep. So I was a writer on that. We had a whole writer's room, Darius. It was crazy. And by the way, that writer's room was brilliant. Graham Moore, a great friend of mine, went on to write Imitation Game, won an Oscar. Like these are people in our like reality writing room. This is my friend Ben Epstein, who's sold 1 million shows to a lot of scripted shows. Like we had a brilliant writing room. Charles Hood's the big director now. I mean, it's crazy.
Can I ask you a question? Because I can't remember who it was, but I was listening to NPR, and this woman was talking about how she basically worked. She was like I think she was a comedian or something like that, and she wrote a show and got to work in the writing room, and she's like, it was the best job ever. Like working. Oh my God, was like, I can't believe I get paid to do this.
It's literally, it's so much fun. It's like you're sitting in a room with a bunch of funny people, where it's like, it depends. Obviously, some people are like, I've had bad experiences if people are really competitive or whatever that is, but I feel like that can happen with any job. But like for the most part, you're sitting around like telling fart jokes, like laughing, discussing politics, laughing, taking zero seriously, but all kind of coming together to try to put together the funniest piece of material that you could put together until the network shoots it down, obviously.
Right.
It's so much fun.
What, like right now, in just to press the pause button here, right now in our woke #MeToo, like total cancel culture, how do you feel like the things that you did then, how do you think those would be like how is it now? Maybe, I mean,
oh my God, Darius, I don't think you can get away with anything you can get away with. I wrote on this game show. I took this game show to just keep up my Writers Guild benefits because they've got great benefits, the Writers Guild. And I took this 2-month job just to keep up the benefits. And it was a show called Oh Sit. And it was a basically like Wipeout, but it was a musical chairs game show on the CW. And it was we had actual writers on there because it was all joke after joke after joke. And some of the jokes on there, I was showing my friend, she's like, Nadine, you guys would be canceled for these jokes. And I was like, I know, like if you go back and you like Google some of these jokes, I was like, oh my God, like thank God nobody knows who wrote those jokes. Just our names are on there as writers credits.
Yeah.
And like,
I swear to God, I didn't write that super racist, sexist.
It's terrible. It is terrible. And I was embarrassed because I was like, I know who wrote that joke. And I also know what jokes I wrote because we don't mean anything by it. It was like, those were just the times of like, that's where comedy was. And like, I feel like the pendulum has swung so far to the other end that everything is so sacred where it's like, I know I'm not racist. I know that I don't fat shame people. I don't slut shame people. I don't do any of those things. And if somebody doesn't know you, it will be taken the wrong way. Because I'm like the most accepting, most empathetic person. Like in my like, I know that I am, and like to be. If anybody were to call me any of those things, I'd be mortified because it's the opposite of who I am. And I make fun of myself for being Persian. It's like, it's one of those things where it's just, we are in a crazy, like, I don't feel like you can get away with any of the things we got away with back then.
Well, right, but and probably wrong. I mean, I'm going to say something provocative right now, wrongfully so. Like, there is probably some of that. Look, there's an argument to be made, and I'm not going to say that all those jokes were cool, right? Probably some of them were super.
No, they're terrible. They were terrible, and I was mortified by some of them. Yes,
some of them were probably super fucking uncool, and like
Yep.
someone in that room that felt like shit when you said it, and everyone
Yep.
laughed, and they just bit the bullet.
Yep.
But there's another side of this where it's like, look, people still make a shit ton of those jokes behind closed doors with their friends and family. So what are we really? We're really just filtering the way we're filtering the world outside of us.
It's almost like an Instagram filter, right? It's like you never actually put it. It's you what you want people to see and hear. So it's this is the world we're living in.
Well, it's super fucking
It's
just super inauthentic, and what it does is it gives rise to Trumpism, where you're like, I'm gonna say whatever the fuck I want. You can kiss my ass, right? So and dude, like people are like, fuck yeah, I want to do that too.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the other side of the pendulum, and I'm like, listen, no, both aren't right. Like you should listen. You should be able to say like stand-up comedians won't even go to colleges anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like Carlos Mencia was one of my favorite stand-up comedians. And you watch some of his shit, and it's like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah,
like,
it's racy.
Said that shit. And I'm like, or like
it was racy then. Imagine now. You know what I mean?
I swear to God, like I don't care what anyone says. I fucking love Carlos Mencia.
No, he's very funny.
And you go and you look at like stuff that we loved growing up, like Eddie Murphy in the 80s. Right?
Oh my God.
It's fucking crazy, right?
The stuff that he would say. But by the way, it's still quoted today, but there were certain things like he made so many gay jokes, so many, like it was just wrong. Like it was wrong. It's like, but nobody's gone after him. It was fine then. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's the other thing. I feel like people learn, and the problem I think with today is there's no room for forgiveness. Like I know that a lot of people have made a lot of mistakes, and it's like I feel like they deserve second chances, because I feel like people have learned and they've grown, and I feel like with more knowledge, the better people get. So I feel like people shouldn't be canceled off forever because of that. That's
like Louis C.K. doing weird dick shit. Yeah, cancel him for a little bit. I that's type of stuff. Like I get people getting canceled for. But let's go the other direction and let's talk about, I don't know, for instance, dude, I had a really good example right now. Oh man, I can't believe I forgot it, but I will remember it in a second here. Dave Chappelle, right?
Yeah.
So I like what he's doing. Like he gets on like his sticks and stones.
Did you watch SNL?
Fuck yeah, I did. Fuck yeah, I did. I loved it. He gets up there and he's like, I'm just gonna say what Lauren. He starts like clowning on Lauren.
He's like, I thought this was a comedy show, Lauren.
and dude, he is the anti-cancel culture. He's like, fuck you. And so my favorite Dave Chappelle is the beginning of Sticks and Stones, where he's like, all right, it's like a riddle. It's like, all right, who am I? I'm gonna hold against you every single thing you've ever done or said in your whole fucking life, no matter when you said it, how you said it. It starts making this whole list. And can you guess who I am? And he's like, I'm you, motherfuckers. And I'm like, I swear to God, Nadine, I was crying.
I died. He's so brilliant. He is so brilliant. It's like, also though, I feel like Dave Chappelle can get away with so much more than anyone else can. It's like, because he is a comedy god, like he really is. But also people know that he's not. He's calling it how it is, right? He doesn't give a fuck. He's calling it how it is.
You know how you get away with it? By not apologizing. That's actually how you, like Donald Trump it. You go like, I'm not apologizing. Fuck you for being a baby. And they're like, but you're fucking committing violence against me, Darius. And I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
But that's violence. No.
Nope, the number one rule they tell you is don't apologize for a joke. But it's like sometimes you're like, well.
Well, like I don't remember who it was. They were talking about how Kevin Hart lost.
Yeah, with the Oscars.
Yeah, lost the Oscars, and you're looking at that, and you're like, dude, you went digging into Twitter and took something away from that he worked for his whole life. And like when that type of shit happens, that's not cool. Like yeah, maybe he said something uncool, but he's a fucking comedian, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
His job is to say provocative shit.
Yeah.
You know? So
he did the right thing where he was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna do it. It was like, because honestly, what did he have to gain from it by doing it? Because he was just going to be ripped apart more. So I don't think he was even giving in. I think he was just like, fuck you guys. I'm just going to lay low and I'm going to do my own thing. And I respect him for that decision. I really do. Even though people have forgiven him and a lot of people came to support, but it was just like, he's like, I don't need this. It's true. It's like, because now with the anonymity of the internet and people trolling people, like I was trolled being an executive producer of, Below Deck Med for this controversial thing that happened on the boat last year. And I'm like, I don't control people's actions, you guys. Like they think this thing's like made up. I'm like, I don't plant drugs on the boat. Like you guys are out of your mind and like thinking I'm not for mental health. I was like, go fuck yourself. Like that is not me at all. Like it was just one of those things where it's like they feel like I've controlled these things. And I'm like, no. I go, what happens on our show is 100% real and I don't control it. Like that's we document it. Like that's the difference between Below Deck Med and it's a crazy place. The internet is a crazy, crazy place. And then you click on these people that troll you, they have one follower. So it's a troll account. It's like, dude.
Yeah, fuck those people. I think that we should have a death march for trolls on the internet.
We should have
like if you've ever been a troll, like you just get lit up. Like we're gonna line you up like French, Northern African French gun style. So let's do this. I want to kind of roll. I really want you to tell the audience how you got to where you're at right now. Like let's
So going into Daddy's Girl. So I started doing that, and I realized being a writer and being able to tell a story because I was in that writer's room that I was like, and I'd never done reality at the time, so I had a very different route than other people that worked in reality. That I was able to put together a story, whether it was real or not, and so. What was interesting in a room like that is we'd have table reads. And I remember, Vanessa Simmons and all these people would come in the room. They're like, we wouldn't say this. And it's like, well, I know it's a reality show. We have you write, like the network has us writing for you, but like, it's impossible without you guys in the room. So it was a weird process. And then after that, I went on because I realized I had this knack for like writing reality. And I started the series called Jerseylicious that was on the Style Network. So these girls that worked in the salon in Jersey. I wrote out that whole season. And then I was like, I'm not doing a reality. This is crazy. Like, so I still doing my stand up. I was still doing all my things. And at the time I was still trying to hawk my hot dog on a stick show. So I was still pitching it around and I pitched it to who was actually one of my great friends now at a production company. And she had sold a show about art and cooking in Miami for Bravo. And they first bought it as a Housewives of Miami. And then they said, no, it's going to be a show about art and cooking in Miami because we don't want to be known as the Housewives Network. This is before the rise of like all the Housewives franchises because they started realizing, they had Housewives of OC at the time and I think New York. And they were like, you know what? We've got too many housewives. We don't want to be known as the Housewives Network. So we're going to make this a different show. So they went and shot this whole show. I wasn't in the field for this. And then they brought it back to post-production. And my friend said, hey, because they started doing my hot dog on a stick show. They said, do you want to do a job kind of putting together a show in post-production, the storytelling? Because a lot of these shows that are shot verite, like a reel versus that are written, are the storytelling's done in post. And at the time I booked a pilot for IFC, Independent Film Channel, to do their version of, this is when Tosh had just come out. They wanted to do a nerdy version of Tosh. So I was going to host it, write it, do all that stuff. It was called The Grid. And they asked me not to go on the road for my stand-up. And I'd been to Afghanistan. I'd been to a bunch of places. And I was supposed to go to Iraq at the time, and they said, please don't leave the country. God forbid something happens. So my friend offered me this job. And I was like, sure, I might as well take it just to learn. Like, it would be a great skill set for me to learn. So I took the job. They turned in the first couple episodes of this non-housewife show they bought. Bravo looked at it and they go, well, this is a housewife show. And we're like, you didn't shoot a housewife show. And so it got kind of contentious between the production company and the network. they liked my episode. They said, whoever produced this episode, we're going to keep them. It happened to be me. And I was like, I'm not doing reality. Fuck that. But and in this time, my pilot didn't get picked up, even though IFC was positive it was going to get picked up. And so my friend goes, Nadine, can you please stay on the show? We need somebody that we trust, because they were still fiscally responsible for the show, but they took the show physically away from them into an offsite edit bay. It was really unfortunate, actually, for that production company, because they're very good people. And it wasn't Bravo's fault. They just weren't in line. They weren't in line. They didn't have the same vision of it. And so basically I go and I take over what became the Housewives of Miami. We had to reshoot all the interviews, reframe the first season of Housewives of Miami. So if anybody ever goes back and watches the Housewives of Miami, the first season, there was like weird art shows. They had cooking lessons. Like, it's nothing like any other Housewives. It's actually really bad. But like, if somebody actually knew that information, they'd be like, how did you get that on the air and how did you get it to air? Because it kind of looks like a Housewives show. Like, it was enough to get them a second season. So it's actually a miracle it got picked up to more.
Wow.
So it was my naivete, not knowing, like, I was in there. They brought on my friend who's in charge of the Housewives of New York for like a month to like kind of get me going, show me how to do it. She left. So it was me, my story assistant at the time, who became a had I known then like Deborah's, and had I known then what I know now, I would have never taken that job. But it was like boot camp. So I was just like doing what I like instinctually what I could do. Like, because storytelling is storytelling. Even though I'd never run a show in post, like I honestly don't know how I got it done. So I delivered the first season and Bravo's like, I feel like it was a weird skill that I had, because now looking back, I could look at people that have been in the business for a long time and they have a hard time with post. But I feel like it was one of those weird Rain Manny things that I was able to like look at the footage and piece it together, kind of.
Wow.
And I think all my years of like storytelling and putting together my own things is what, before I would look back and go, I got lucky. And it's like, no, I actually had been working in television since I was 19 and knew how to tell a story. So I feel like the physical skill of the edit, and I wasn't physically editing, I was just overseeing the edit. So
Sure.
that was the part that I had to learn, like how to physically give notes and do things like that. But we delivered that show. It aired again. Bravo said, you could never leave again. I go, I'm a stand-up. Go fuck off. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I remember about 6 months passed and they said, Nadine, we have another show. We just need your help for a month. Can you please go reassess the show? It was a show called Most Eligible Dallas. So there was another first season show. And the production, the edit was in Apopka, Florida, which is a suburb of Orlando. They're like, you just have to go for a month. I'm like, I'm not going to Orlando. Like, are you out of your mind? And they're like, it's 1 month. What are you doing? And I'm like, just stand up. They're like, please. And I'm like, fine. Like, here's my price. I'll go for a month. I ended up going for 2 months. I got that show aired somehow. And so then they're like, Nadine, you can't leave. So I became kind of like they wouldn't call it that, but like their fixer. So they would send me to troubled first season shows that were in trouble for first seasons. And I would have to piece it together or reassess. Is this a show? They shot something. Can we do this? And then that started happening with the field. So when they were shooting something, because I was talent, I didn't realize that I had the skill set, but because I'd done all my years of radio interviewing people, so I was able to talk to people. And being on the other side of the camera, I knew never to mess with anybody, never to like mess with the integrity of anything. Like, that's the thing. A lot of people, like reality TV producers, are evil. It's like, I will never, ever mess with them. Like, I will never manipulate anything. And the people that I worked with would tell you that, like, they have my full trust of like, I will never, like, what you see is what you get. And if they screwed up, it's on them and we talk about it. Like,
Right.
They have a chance to own up to it, whatever that is. And I feel like all my years of being a comedian and things like that helped me, because I've been on the other side. I know what it's like to be messed with. I know what it's like to be manipulated. I know what it's like to be edited weirdly. And I, at that point, like, started doing that while we were, they'd send me out to the field. They send me out to post-production. And, someone loves Below Deck Med. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
we have a few fans who are
That's
here.
awesome.
Hi, Karen, and hi, Candy.
Hi guys. So if they have questions, we'll get there in a second. And I remember I was sick of doing these Fix It shows, and I just told Bravo, hey guys, I'm a comedian. Let me do shows for you digitally. Like, let me be on camera and let me do these things, because I never saw myself as a reality producer. And not that I didn't like it. It was actually very creative, what people wouldn't think, but it is. And so they started letting me do their digital shows. I did an after show in a bathtub. I remember though, I'm like, I want to do an after show. I'm like, I want to take a bath with the Shahs. They're like, you're high. And I was like, dude, let me do it. I swear to God, people will click on it. It'll be funny. And they're like, all right, we'll give you $13,000 to do this. I'm like, they thought no way she could do this. I'm like, I'll do it. I'll do it for free. I'm like, it wasn't $13,000 in my pocket. It was for all production. So like, I was completely out of pocket on this. My friend Jason and I, who works at Bravo, we were like editing the thing on our laptops like it was student film. Like it actually looks really good. And so what they didn't realize how many people clicked on it, because it looks like we're naked in a bathtub. We're not, but it was total clickbait of like, and they're like, Nadine, I don't know how you pulled this off, but you did it. And it's so uncomfortable to watch, but funny. And so,
hey, by the way, I've watched that.
Yeah, so it's like so awkward and uncomfortable because I'm talking about the show while I'm taking a bath with them. It's just so.
It was like a bubble bath, though, wasn't it?
It was a bubble bath. It was so fun.
I totally remember when you put that.
Fun. It was so fun. So they're like, oh my God, they're like, it works, I guess. So then they started letting me do things for them on camera, so I was able to like fulfill my comedian side. And so I remember I was like, I'm done doing these fix-it shows. And I remember they wanted me to produce the Shahs. I felt too close to them because I know them all. So I'm like, I don't feel like I could do this show without bias. And I remember one day I caught and they'd been trying to get me on Below Deck for the first 2 seasons because it was a show on the bubble. And I would do I'll do Below Deck. And they said, actually, that show does need help. And we've been trying to get you on Below Deck. So we would love it if you do Below Deck. So I did season 3 of Below Deck, and that was the season with this girl Rocky, who it was a runaway success that season, and it was the highest rated season. And so we launched
on this. So hold on, just sorry to interrupt. We have like 10 more minutes. So
sure, yeah.
I don't, because I have a hard stop at 2:00 my time, noon your time. So So how did the first 2 seasons of Below Deck go before? Because I actually, for some reason, I didn't realize there was 2 seasons before you got involved. So.
Well, it was original Below Deck, not Below Deck Med. So I launched Med. So my franchise I launched from the beginning, but it just wasn't. I feel like they were trying to figure out the series. I feel like the edit was really messy, and they weren't able to. Bravo has a very specific brand, and I feel like they didn't have people that knew the network that were able to. Kind of like it's a certain type of storytelling with Bravo. It's like, and so
very formulaic.
Very formulaic. It's the sheen of it, the sound, all that stuff. And so when season 3 came about and we started developing Below Deck Med, Bravo gave me Med. I launched Med from the ground up, and that became my baby. And then I was working on both, kind of overseeing both. And then I got too busy. And then now I'm only doing Med, and I have a first look with the network where I'm like, come up with show ideas in my production company and things like that and sell them things. But Med has been my baby from season 1. And so that's been, which is crazy. It was a franchise of the original, and it actually rates higher than the original. It's the highest rated franchise.
We just got a question from the audience. Were the first 2 with Captain Lee? Yes,
the first 2 were with Captain Lee. He still does the original, which is airing right now. But it was the first season of Below Deck Med was with this guy, Captain Mark. And then we brought on Captain Sandy, we could talk about that on the next podcast, but of how Captain Sandy came about. But yeah, Captain Lee was with the original, and Captain Lee actually came with the boat when they sold Below Deck. Like, he wasn't supposed to be on the show. He just came with the boat when we chartered the boat for the show.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously that's been kind of a turning point for you. What year did that happen in, by the way?
Med launched in 2016. We shot it in 2015. We were in Greece. I started Below Deck. Season 3 was in 2015 as well.
Okay, cool. So in 2013, that was the first time we had seen each other since like high school.
We did the TEDx thing.
Yeah, so I asked Nadine to come and do a TEDx Golden Gate Park.
Coolest experience of my life. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you. I think we had tech difficulties, and you were very gracious about it. But it was really cool. And your mom and brother were there too.
I love Bugsy too, Karen. Yeah, my mom and brother were there too.
So this was 2 years. So you were doing all this hustling in between, because I think at that point you were doing the Showtime series, Hot Tamales, the stand up, and then from that, you got the show. So your life really went, you were like, I mean, honestly, I'm hearing like living color Jamaican like jobs. Like you're just like,
it literally was. And it turned, and I just got too busy when I started juggling both the Below Decks. And then when the network gave me a first look, it was just like, I couldn't, it's not like I don't want to get on stage. So this past year, I was like, I have to do what makes me happy. And Below Deck does make me happy, but like, I am very much I don't have this need to be on camera, but I am a comedian. I will always be a comedian. So I forced myself to get on stage. It was the best feeling in the world to get back on stage and be doing all these things. And then the pandemic hit. So, you know, but stand up is something I'll do to the day I die. But, you know, I've been very fortunate. I kind of fell into what I was doing. But it's funny how life is. It's like, you don't, I mean, Darius, think about your turning point. It's like you would have never known that you would have, you know what I mean? It's like the way, if this event didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. It's like, it's not something you can't plan life. You really can't.
it's tough to, it's hard to, when you're in it, it's hard. So I want to go to that. So you end up doing the Below Deck Med. It's a runaway success. How did that change your career?
You know what's interesting? It's funny because what I was doing and what I do for Below Deck Med, you know, I run the field, I run post, I oversee the whole series. It's funny because when it wasn't as successful like the first 2 seasons, it did well, but it wasn't like a runway success. You know, it has opened so many doors where everyone's like, oh, we need like like now everyone wants to share. I could be pitching the same idea. I could be pitching the same idea as I did 5 years ago now, and now people will listen. And it's funny because I haven't done anything different as a producer, which is so interesting of what people's perception is. It's like I've been doing the same thing as a producer from the day I started. And I mean, obviously, maybe I have a lot more experience, but like it's interesting once something becomes successful, they have your attention, and everybody wants. It's like, oh, what do you have? We want to give you whatever you want. And it's like, you guys, I'm still the same person. I still have the same brain as I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So
well,
it's unfortunate.
The difference is if the show sucks, they don't get fired now because
right.
you have a track record. Whereas
That's right.
Before you were a unknown entity to a certain
That's
point.
Right.
So
and now it's proven. They're like, oh, now the showrunner of Below Deck Med is producing this. So it's almost like a
trust.
Yeah, it's like when you see movies are like from the makers of E.T. when it's Spielberg, from Steven Spielberg, it's like that's what it's become. And it's interesting because I mean, honestly, I have not done anything differently in the last 5-6 years of my career with the series that I'm doing now. It's just we get lucky, and it's lightning in a bottle when you have a successful show because you don't know who's going to watch. You don't know how many people are going to watch. You don't know what's going to happen, and that's why I like doing the show is because it is so real and raw, and you're really a fly in the wall, and I'll come back on your show anytime we could talk about it more because it's such an interesting social experiment, our series, and a lesson in psychology. But like, we really just sit there and watch screens. And for people to be like, you guys are controlling this. It's like, no, this is why I love the show because we don't know what's going to happen. The way you guys watch is the way we watch. We just shrink it down and edit. But like, it's crazy. Like it is crazy. And you're beholden to maritime law, Mother Nature. We have a lot of things that other reality shows don't do. Housewives goes and shoots for, I don't know, 2 hours a day. Like we're shoot 24 hours a day on a boat where the whole boat is rigged. Like there's nothing we could do about it.
Yeah, I lived on a boat for 100 days.
Yes, when you did a semester at sea.
Yeah,
that is wild.
So I mean, like that. I mean, like I get it. Like, dude, there's a lot of crazy shit that happened when we were on our boat, and there was 600 college students on a boat for 3.5 months.
That's a show that they've got to rig and do.
It's really, I mean, it's an amazing experience. I mean, I was lucky to get to do it when I was 20. And anyone out there that's thinking about it, you should totally have your kids do it if you can afford it.
Are they still doing it? I mean, it's not a pandemic, but yeah.
Expensive. No, I think they were doing it. I don't know with the pandemic what's happened, but they were. Maybe they shut it down because of the pandemic. So number one, we are definitely going to do a part 2 on this show because we just got into like where you're at right now, and I really want to kind of go deeper into the Below Deck Med experience. So let's do that. Let's plan on doing. Are you down for that part 2?
Absolutely. You guys let me know when, and any of the listeners here can have questions and things like that. And hi, core value equation. Any questions and things like that? Be ready, and we'll address all of them.
Yeah, we have a
We'll have an AMA.
Yeah, we have one quick question, and then we're going to get wrapped up here. How
Okay.
many production people are on the boat shooting beyond the people we see? One or two cameramen?
Not a lot actually, because we have a capacity of the boat. So we take over a stateroom of a boat. So that's where we are kind of all housed. So it's I'm the showrunner. I have a director next to me who basically just calls where the cameras go. I have my number two, who's always listening to what's going on, and then I've got another story producer that's kind of running all the surveillance deck. So there's only four of us kind of controlling what's happening, and then we've got a production assistant. The camera people on the boat, we have anywhere from 2 to 3 at a time. Typically it's 2, and everything else is surveillance. So we are literally running and gunning, and it's as we hear. So like we're listening to the whole boat's rigged. So we're listening to what's happening. So if I hear the chef freaking out, I'll yell to the director, "Hey, send a camera to the galley." And then, someone will yell out in the room, like our story producer go, "Nadine, oh my gosh, someone's upset about something while they're cleaning." And I'd be like, "Great, go send the camera there." So, and then our jobs are psychologically to be 2 steps ahead of them of how we think they're going to react. So if we think they're going to go and confront somebody, we will go send a camera already in advance, knowing that they're going to confront somebody, or knowing like it's a guessing game. A lot of times we're wrong, and it's really a lesson in psychology.
Oh, it's so cool. That's so interesting.
Thanks, Candy Dandy.
So cool.
Awesome.
One last question, and then we're going to wrap it up here. If you could give your 20-year-old self, your 21-year-old self, when you were just getting into the business, any advice, knowing what you know now, having the success you've had so far, what advice would you give yourself? Oh. Wait, you're cutting out. Wait, I'm losing you. You there?
Can you hear me now?
Sorry, were you cut out?
I'm here. Can you hear me? Yep.
Yeah,
Are you back?
We're back. Yeah.
It's funny. I always say, like, I would always tell myself that it was going to be okay and all that stuff. But like, in a way, I'm glad I didn't know, because I feel like it would have, like, if my guard would have been down and I would have not had the hustle. And like, I always had the hustle, and I feel like the unknown was what always kept me hungry. And so I feel like I would tell myself to always stay hungry and always learning, and also don't have an ego. Like that's the one thing that I've learned when I have to deal with people that are on camera that I work with. It's like the ego is going to be your biggest enemy, and it's what's going to keep you from growing. And I would always, and I feel like this is something that has been instilled with my family, is always have respect for yourself and give mutual respect, because when you give respect, you're going to get respect back. And I feel like that's something that, like, I've been very lucky that I've had a very grounded, family that's been able to instill that in me. Like I was never, obviously we all have our own insecurities, but like I was always very calm in situations, and I was always very respectful and very grateful. And I would always just tell myself to always stay humble and don't have an ego. But I don't feel like I ever suffer from that. But there's always parts where like you look back and go, that was my ego reacting and not me if I got upset about certain things. So I feel like that's the thing that I would, and it's hard to say, be like, oh, I don't have an ego. It's like, well, that's actually having an ego. Because you don't have an ego.
Yeah. What do you mean? I don't have a fucking ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do, Darius. That's your ego talking. Wow. Well, what a great show. I'm so pumped to have you here and to have you come back for part 2. This is so much fun. Like you and I.
Just let me know when I'm in town, so it's great.
Yeah, I'll send you a link and we'll reschedule that up, because this is going to be like, I really want to dive deeper with you. But oh my gosh, what a treat! It's like Nadine.
Thank you, Darius. This was so fun, and thank you everyone listening.
Yeah, it's such a rock star, guys. How lucky are we to have Nadine? First of all, great show. We got next week, we got Marsha Rawls coming in, CEO, art expert. She has her brand new business we're going to be talking about. She's an amazing person. Can't wait to have Marsha on here. But on my side, guys, thank you so much. First and foremost, if you haven't picked up a copy of my book, pick up a copy of my book. And if you have, write a review on it. But sign up at therealdarius.com, where you can get any updates on the show. We're having a ton of great people coming on in the next few weeks. And we're giving a bunch of show updates, as well as giving updates on the book and some things that are going on with that. I'm doing a bunch of podcasts right now where we're talking about the book. And last but not least, I'm actually launching a podcast on the book. So for those of you guys that love the book, it's going to be me giving a lot of insight on the podcast, behind the scenes stuff on the book. But my gosh, I love having Nadine and like around. We always have the best time. You were such a champion.
Darius is one of my oldest friends and honestly one of the greatest humans on earth, in my opinion. So thank you for always championing me.
Oh my gosh, it's like I love it. I'm always like, Nadine, we got to do a show together. Show.
We do.
Who knows? You guys, with that, everyone, have a great week. Stay safe. Don't get COVID. We love you. Out.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.